Today's episode is brought to you by Unanimous Craft. Unanimous Craft is a website where you can find places to sell your handmade and small batch work. It's basically an online index of brick and mortar shops, online selling venues, and craft shows around the country. Visit unanimouscraft.com/naps for a special offer just for Walsh Naps listeners. And now, here's the show. Welcome to episode 81 of the Walsh Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today we're talking about book publishing with my guests, Sara Bercholz and Jennifer Urban Brown of Roost Books, an imprint of Shambhala. Sara is the executive vice president of Shambhala and the publisher of Roost Books. She started Roost Books with Jenn in 2012. Shambhala was started by her father, Sam Bercholz, in the 1960s. And the company remains in the family. Sara, welcome.
Thanks, Abby.
Thanks for being here. And Jennifer Urban Brown is an avid knitter, a B+ sewer, and a dabbling baker. She's been an editor at Roost Books, Shambhala Publications since 2006, where she has the great privilege of working on books that truly inspire her and that reflect the things that she cherishes most in life: creativity and community. Born in Weymouth, Massachusetts, and raised on Martha's Vineyard, her father likes to remind her that she is 50% Jersey girl. She credits her partial Jersey roots for her love of Bruce Springsteen. Jen, welcome.
Thanks, Abby.
Yeah, nice to see you guys, or at least hear you guys, and I'm really glad that we get a chance to talk today. So we are going to dive right into craft publishing and Roost Books and Shambhala, and I wondered if you could describe what makes a Roost book? So I'm not sure which one of you wants to take that one, but I'll let you choose.
We'll probably tag team it. It's something that we're constantly trying to get a handle on and keep refining our vision on what it means. But at the core of it, we really want our books to have a positive impact on people's lives. Shambhala Publications publishes books that are more overt in the way that they do that, dealing a lot with spirituality and psychology, religion, and those kinds of sort of higher ideas, so to speak. Roost deals more with the things that we do with our hands and our hearts, and we still really want those things to be significant in people's lives and for the books to bring some level of richness into one's world. So that's a piece of it.
And I guess specifically for the craft side of the list, our craft books really try to speak to a more personal expression of craft. So our books are either meant to inspire a connection with our materials or the environment. They're meant to help us connect to our family, our friends, our community, or really be a place where we can go more internal or deeper with ourselves as a source of connection.
Right, and it seems like there's this focus that carries through everything, both Shambhala and Roost, on the word enlightenment.
Yeah, I think so. Enlightenment or enrichment or
realization.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, it's a more overt on the Shambhala side, and on the Roost side, I think we really try to bring that to the domestic or the creative part of people's lives, not that it's not that different from one's spiritual life, but it's as much of a high calling.
Right. I think that's very true. And I think that's an idea that's becoming increasingly appealing to people. I'm seeing a lot of different conferences and things where it's almost as though craft is a form of meditation or mind-body connection. I think that's an idea that's taking hold right now.
Yeah.
Yes. And within crafts, what kind of books, like what kind of topic areas within crafts, just to give people a sense of sort of some of the meat of what the books are about?
We don't discriminate. I am personally really drawn to knitting books. So one of the few knitting titles we've done is called Adventures in Yarn Farming, where we're invited onto Barbara Perry's sheep farm and get to learn the whole process of raising yarn from the hoof. We also do more traditional sewing books. So we worked with Tilly Whalens on her book, Love at First Stitch, which is kind of a guide to garment sewing, kind of an intro book. We've worked with Maya Donenfeld on her book, Hope, Make, Heal, which is really pan craft. It goes through a lot of different types of projects with a more personal focus. And we're doing a lot of embroidery books currently, working with some Japanese publishers to bring out some really gorgeous botanical embroidery books here. So we really do cover a pretty broad range in the books we publish in the category.
Right. So it's more about kind of the intention of the book than it necessarily is about, we don't do paper crafts or we only do knitting or
we
something
do
like that.
paper crafts.
Right. No, I'm saying like you would take on a book about any kind of craft if it had the right kind of sort of intentionality behind it.
Absolutely. Or message. And sometimes that's more overt. Again, Maya Donenfeld's book, Hope, Make, Heal, is about working with grief through craft. But we've also done some books that the kind of personal or inspiring quality of it is more hidden. And it's just something we felt like the crafts themselves inspired something wonderful in ourselves. So we wanted to share that with the world.
Right. Like some of the Japanese craft books that we've done, Jenn mentioned the embroidery books that we've been doing, but we've also done some sewing books and paper cutting. And there's just a very delightful quality to them. And there's nothing overt in the language that makes it particularly deep or something like that. It's just that they're really beautiful, and there's a certain kind of delight and quietude and richness to the feeling you get from even just looking at one, but then especially if you dive into some of the projects. So it doesn't have to be really overt. It can just be kind of a subtle thing that exists in the aesthetic or the quality within the pages.
And with those books, we're really trying to point to a lifestyle as well. Like, this is a really nice thing to bring into our lives as a way to create inspiration and quiet.
Right. I love that. I love that idea of quiet as being part of sort of your ethos or your outlook on craft and craft publishing. So, and I know you published Amanda Blake Soul's books, and that very first one, it seems like it came out right when Roost was sort of becoming an independent or an imprint of Shambhala. And I wondered if there was some interplay there. Like, was there an influence of the success of Amanda's book that sort of helped you start or have confidence in starting Roost?
So I'm going to let Jenn mostly talk about Amanda because she is responsible for bringing her into our family. But Roost sort of came out of Jenn and I each having really strong interest in books that didn't exist outside the identity of Shambhala particularly, but that weren't the typical Shambhala book. And Jenn started working with people like Amanda, and I started acquiring cookbooks. And so there was a few books that came out that mostly Jenn had acquired prior to us starting Roost in an official way. And Amanda was one of those authors that kind of put some fire under us. So Jenn, want to talk about Amanda?
I adore Amanda. She's just such a dear, dear person. And The Creative Family was the first book that we did with her, it's almost coming up on its 10-year anniversary, which is kind of hard to believe.
Amazing. Amanda and I started our blogs in the same month. And so we're old friends, and I bought the book immediately when it came out. And I remember devouring it and giving it to friends. And that's amazing. It's been so long.
I know, it's crazy. So it's one of the very first books that I acquired when I started at Shambhala. And at that time, I was really trying to think of ways we could expand Shambhala's list into other categories. And creativity and family life were things that really much on my mind. And I came up with this idea of kind of creative family living. And it was one of those kismet moments when I reached out to Amanda. She was like, I was already writing the proposal for this book. So it was just the perfect match. And I do think, Amanda and then Sara's cookbooks were really the foundation for what became Roost. We were kind of exploring those ideas and building that list before we really knew we were building that list.
Yeah.
That's nice. I think it's a neat way to sort of grow, to start with that symbiosis with Amanda, because she really embodies a lot of what we just talked about, I think. So, and I wondered if you could just tell me, maybe, Sara, what does Shambhala, that word, mean? I had actually never heard that word before Amanda's book, when it was on the spine, and I just wondered what that word means.
Sure. Well, Shambhala refers to an ancient kingdom that exists in somewhere in the Himalayas. It sort of has over time switched from country to country as things have shifted in terms of the way that geography looks. But it is a historical place, and it is said to have been an enlightened society. And as part of that enlightened society, all of the things that are included in one's life were part of that enlightenment. So it wasn't people just sitting around on meditation cushions and being really blissed out or anything like that. It was all of the people doing all of the work that are part of a society. So householders and skilled laborers and everybody from those kinds of people to the higher thinkers and the king and the queen were all enlightened, so they say. So the word Shambhala comes from that, and I really love that and feel that Roost fits very strongly into that vision of what Shambhala means in expressing the like I was saying before, the sort of domestic and creative and family side of what it means to live an enlightened life.
Right. And Roost is a very apt name for that. Yeah.
When we were thinking of when we were starting the imprint and having meetings to think about what we wanted to call it, what our vision was, Jenn and I both brought Roost as a possible name for the imprint. So yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it was meant to be. So Shambhala is based in Boulder now. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. But that wasn't always the case. And I wondered, Sara, maybe you can trace for us the history of Shambhala a little bit, just from when your father, Sam Bercholz, founded the company, and kind of the brief version of how it got to where it is today.
Sure. So my father started a small bookshop in the basement of Moe's bookstore in Berkeley, California on Telegraph Avenue. And out of that little bookshop within a bookshop, he opened a slightly larger independent bookstore called Shambhala Booksellers just down the street in Berkeley. Some years after he started that, he was in his late teens when he started the bookstore. He had a sort of mentor figure in England who was publishing a book called Meditation in Action by Chogyam Trungpa. And this gentleman in England sent my father the manuscript and asked, did he want to publish it in the US? And my father says that because he was ignorant enough to think he could be a publisher, he said yes. And that's how he started his publishing career. So Shambhala Booksellers came first, and Shambhala Publications was born out of that. And in the 70s, Shambhala Publications moved to Boulder, Colorado, when Chogyam Trungpa, that first author, settled here, and my father and mother had become students of his as well as his publisher, and so they moved the business here to Boulder. The bookstore remained in Berkeley, and then following that, Chogyam Trungpa moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and there was a plan to move Shambhala Publications there. And as a stopping off point, Shambhala Publications moved to Boston, and it never worked to move the company into Canada. So it stayed in Boston for 3 decades. So that was a long stopping off point. And then about 6 years ago, my father asked my brother and I if we wanted to keep the business in the family, and we agreed that we did. We were both active in the company already, and in thinking about what we wanted the future to look like, we thought, well, the possibilities are open for what that looks like on a lot of levels, including where we were based. And while Boston was a really great place for Shambhala Publications to become a very established and well-respected business, I think a lot of what we want for the future looks more creative and community-oriented and a little less stuffy than sometimes Boston felt. So we thought a lot about where we wanted to go, and we did a lot of traveling and looking at different places and what they might hold for us. And after starting with Boulder and circling around for a couple of years, we landed back on it, and we moved to Boulder. Shambhala opened its doors in Boulder a year ago. And we're sitting here in my office looking out at the mountains, and it's been a pretty crazy year, but really excellent. And it does feel like the right place for us.
And Jenn, we met in 2013, I think, when you were still in the Boston area. We did a little panel discussion about craft publishing. And so you decided to relocate, as did Carissa, I think, who I knew in Boston too.
That's right. Yeah, we all came out.
Yeah. So that's kind of a sign of a dedicated staff, I feel like. Not everybody would be like, yes, I'm going to, sell my house or just pick up and move all the way, it's far from Boston to Boulder. It's a very different life. So
it is far. I'll say that Shambhala is a really wonderful place to work, and a lot of us feel very lucky to work at a company that feels very humane and kind, and where we get to work on books that we really believe in. So it's a hard thing to let go of. And for many of us, the move to Boulder felt like an interesting adventure. It was hard to pass up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I haven't been to Boulder, but it's on my list. So, and I feel like some of the topics of the books from Shambhala's list back in the late 60s and the 70s, which were kind of countercultural at that time, like Buddhism and martial arts and yoga, certainly yoga and alternative medicine, that sort of thing. Those things are now many of them are so mainstream now. I mean, yoga has become really mainstream now. And also they've become commercial, they've become things that are big business. And you guys have ridden that wave, and those things are still relevant, but they're relevant in a new way.
Yeah, well, when my dad started Shambhala Booksellers, he had interest in pretty much everything that at that time was pretty weird and counterculture and obscure. And he wasn't the only person that was interested in those things. And he brought books in on all kinds of world traditions and the occult. And his bookstore became a sort of landmark place for learning about those things. And then, over the course of Shambhala's history, we're now somewhere around 45 years old. Many of those things, it's true, are very much part of mainstream culture and best-selling books. Everybody knows who the Dalai Lama is. Everybody has tried yoga at least once. Many people are open to different forms of thinking about health and well-being, and we still pretty much do the same things. It's just that those are part of the mainstream now, and we still try to really uphold the quality of the books that we're publishing in those areas and keeping really true to the traditions that they come from.
I want to take a minute now to talk with our sponsor, Rosalie Gale from Unanimous Craft.
I'm Rosalie Gale from Unanimous Craft.
And what is Unanimous Craft?
Unanimous Craft is a website where you can find places to sell your handmade and small batch goods.
Okay, so you can find places like stores and craft fairs?
Yeah, there's 3 different sections. So you can find brick and mortar retail shops that sell handmade items. You can find online venues, so websites where you can submit your work to sell through their website. And then also people who produce craft shows around the country. I've done a huge amount of research into all of these places. And there's also the ability on the site to rate and review each of these different locations. So eventually that information will be sort of like shared information for our communities. The comments could be simple things just as like, what kinds of products are they looking for? So you can see if what you're making is going to be a good fit for that location. I have been making shower art, which is waterproof art that you can hang in your shower with a suction cup under my business name, Ugly Baby, for about the past 10 years. So I've done just about every craft show out there that's reasonable to do. I sell at a lot of the stores that sell handmade items. So I have a lot of experience with this community. If you subscribe for a year-long premium membership on the site, then you get access to our craft show calendar, which shows the dates that applications open and close for shows all around the country. And to find that information, you would go to unanimouscraft/naps, and there's a discount code just for While She Naps listeners.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Rosalie.
Yeah, thank you.
And now back to my conversation with Sara and Jenn. And are some of those older books still in print?
Yes, many of them, including our first book that I mentioned before, Meditation in Action. We actually really pride ourselves on the strength of our backlist and the way that we publish, which is thinking about books having a value beyond the first year or few years of the book's life, but for, hopefully all ages, all times.
Right. So keeping those books alive is important to you.
It is. And we do for books that are, not every book that we've ever published is still in print, but in as much as we can, we try to do short run printings of books that still sell, even if it's sort of slow, because there is value in those pages and to the people who want to find out about the thing that book talks about. So we really make an effort in that way.
And so when I think about craft becoming mainstream or sort of domestic arts and family and handmade and that kind of thing, I think about Martha Stewart, because I feel like her influence in taking domestic arts seriously sort of seeped into our culture and made those things mainstream, that they would be beautifully produced and would be kind of, something worth paying money for. And I just wondered if you see that, if you see, some overall cultural influence of Martha that still affects sort of the way that craft publishing functions.
I've never thought about that, to be honest.
I think she certainly, as you said, kind of raised the awareness or raised the value of creating home and having a certain knowledge about how to care for yourself and your home and the people around you. So I think she certainly had a hand in elevating all of that.
Yeah, I think so. I think that affects craft blogs and craft publishing and sort of the whole industry to a degree in a way that, is her legacy and is pretty powerful. It was a long legacy and it's still going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have a number of Martha Stewart alum on our list as authors and artists and whatnot. And I had the pleasure of meeting Martha in the bathroom at the James Beard Awards.
And how was she?
Tipsy.
That's awesome. So speaking of blogs, I wondered how you view the food blogs, because there's such beautiful food blogs now, and there's so many food blogs, and food blogging is a huge industry now in and of itself. And also craft blogs, of which I think there's probably somewhat fewer, but those that are still here are very professionalized, many of them, and, look like the pages of Martha Stewart, let's say. So when you as a publishing house look at the bloggers, the sort of indie publishers that are all online, do you see that as like a pool of talent? Do you see that as like competition, or kind of how are you viewing those blogs?
Well, we really started out as a publisher of bloggers. I think, with Amanda and with our first cookbook, who was also the first book that we published as a Roost book, was La Tartine Gourmande by Beatrice Peltra. And many of our early books especially, but continuing on now, are from authors who have established themselves in that way. I definitely don't really view it as competition. I feel definitely overwhelmed by the amount of material that there is now. I think when we started, it was clear who was doing something special, and I think we got lucky early on finding really special people and making those connections and establishing ourselves and them in that way. Now it's much harder to navigate. It's a totally overwhelming landscape.
I think you said that so well, that it was clear who was doing something special, because the pool was so small. And the people who really had a unique message or a unique point of view, whether it was aesthetically or with the content that they were creating, attracted a lot of attention, and it was really clear. And now it seems so easy, and there's so many tips and tricks and shortcuts to creating something that on the surface looks as polished and as special, and it's harder to dig through and Pinterest and figure out, well, which of these is actually from someone who's got a unique vision, and it's overwhelming, as you said.
It really is. I don't actually know how to navigate it at this point. I rely on somebody else to sort of tell me about something that they're reading that they are really enjoying. I think it used to be that you could sort of like go on one or two or three of your very favorite blogs and sort of see who they were reading and get a real sense of what the community looked like. But it's just so vast at this point. And, we really are looking for people who don't just have a shiny exterior or a certain look necessarily. We're definitely looking for depth in the way that somebody presents whatever world it is that they're involved in, and a lot of heart in that. So,
right. And digging out who's got that depth is harder. So let's talk a little bit about what you are looking for, because I think some of the people who would be listening to this podcast would be maybe, coming up with an idea that they might want to propose. So looking at the website, it looks like Shambhala accepts emailed proposals, but Roost doesn't. Is that still true?
We're both giving we have puzzled looks on our faces. I think we're getting submissions by email for Roost. Are we? It should be the same guidelines as for Shambhala.
Yeah, it should be. We're actually in the process of redoing our website, so
that will get clear.
Okay, so emailed submissions are okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I just want to be sure. Yeah. Okay. And so if an author or, a hopeful author is out there and is thinking, okay, this point of view sounds like right up my alley and would be a good fit. What do you suggest that he or she does now to kind of get ready or get a proposal ready for you? What are you looking for?
Well, I think we're looking for a distinct point of view and a strong sense of personality. With the amount of blogs in the world, the amount of books coming out, I think it's really important to have a distinctive voice. So that's one thing that we're looking for. What else?
That's mostly what we look for. And then it's sort of a weeding out process from there. I mean, there are definitely people who are doing really valuable work that doesn't translate into a marketable book, or even a book period. I think, there's a certain discrimination that has to come in terms of looking at what somebody's doing and saying, oh, well, that exists beautifully, whether it be on the internet or in something that somebody's teaching or whatever, and saying it has great value, but maybe it doesn't translate to a book, or maybe somebody's got a really great idea, but at this point doesn't have a platform for it that makes us feel like we could really bring it to market in a way that would be successful for them or for us. So, there are a lot of different factors involved, but we're always, I think, at the heart of it, looking for those things that, to sort of reflect back on what we were saying at the beginning of our conversation about what makes the Roost book. I mean, that's what we're looking for, those kinds of special people and projects that really feel like they bring something unique and enriching to the world, and that we could make that into a book that people could really have some value added to their lives from.
Okay, so two questions about that. One is around platform. I've talked to quite a few publishing houses on this podcast over maybe the last 2 years, and it does seem like increasingly there's a feeling like the author, his or herself, needs to have developed a platform, whether it's through Instagram or Facebook or newsletter subscribers or something like that. And I wondered whether, it sounds like that is still something that that's something that you are looking at as well. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about which of those things is important to you and what you're looking at. If you get a proposal from somebody, when you go online to check them out, sort of what are you looking at?
All of those things. Platform is important, but that can be built in different ways. So if someone's a renowned teacher who is actively out and doing workshops in different places, that is of value. Even if they have no social media platform, that is something that will speak to how well people know them in the world. Other people, we can look at their Instagram account and be like, oh my God, they have 400,000 followers. That's great. It really varies and depends, but we do look at all of those things and then try to make a best decision based on what the book is and how important that is in getting it out.
Okay.
Yeah, and then too, I think we definitely have authors who don't have much of a platform, but we feel like the strength of their idea, what they have to present, can stand on its own, sort of. I mean, without author recognition. And I think specifically some of the Japanese craft books we were talking about before, we've been really delighted with the success of those. Those are subject-driven books completely.
Yeah.
I don't think most people know or care who the author is.
Right. So yeah, each book we have to kind of go through a different equation and see, subject versus author versus format and what we can get away with.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the publishing landscape is a lot different than it was even 10 years ago. I think the way that people shop for and find out about books continues to change. And, I think 10 years ago we were looking at a landscape where independent bookstores were really at a very low point and the chains were really dominating. Now we've got no borders. We've got dwindling Barnes and Noble. We've got Amazon taking up a huge piece of the pie, which is a very different way of buying books. And there's somewhat of a resurgence in independent bookselling. But, social media is such a huge part of the way that people relate to content of any kind. And so, somebody who comes to us with a really strong, devoted blog following, or, Instagram is sort of a funky thing because I think it's so easy to just click on a follow or click to follow. And, we have authors who have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers, but that has not necessarily translated into sales that look anything like that. But we do rely on authors to help us in finding the audience for their book and letting that audience know about it and being self-promoters, I think more than any time in the past in book publishing.
And are there particular topics within the Roost categories that are super saturated right now that you're just like, enough of those? Enough books on that,
Well, we've said no to every cupcake book we've received a proposal for. I
don't know. We're thinking of growing our home and garden list, and I feel like there's already a saturation of simple living books, Maria Kondo-esque books. I don't.
There isn't a particular subject area that we sort of. It's really so dependent on the project, and even if we were to say no more sewing books, we wouldn't, but if we were to say that, then we got a proposal for one that was just really wonderfully beautiful in some way, we'd break the rules. So,
right. And is there something that's particularly hot right now that you're like, oh yeah, that's next?
Well, we're really thinking about sort of bringing a Roost take to some more traditional modalities. Maybe in terms of herbalism, natural medicine, perhaps astrology, tarot, those kinds of things, giving a sort of contemporary perspective and package. Something we're batting around, but otherwise, we publish in the areas that we love, so those are the things we're keeping on doing.
Yeah, and we're more looking for inspiring individuals who have an interesting take on something. So it's less seeking out a particular subject or niche and more about seeking out interesting people doing cool things.
Right. And so when we imagine your desk, Jenn, this is probably your desk, I'm imagining. You hear about publishing and you think, oh, there's this giant slush pile of proposals that never get sorted through, or they just, give them to an intern and it takes 6 months or something like that. So how many of these craft book proposals, or not even just craft, but sort of Roost proposals, are coming across your desk on like an average week or a month?
It so varies per season, and I have to say I feel very lucky that the general slush pile doesn't necessarily land on my desk.
Oh, good.
The projects that rise to the top of that do.
Okay.
It really varies. I'm getting projects directly from authors. I'm getting projects from the slush pile, and I'm getting projects from agents. And it could range anywhere from, a slow period like 5 projects a week to getting closer to 30 in a week. It really varies. And I have to say it can be really hard to keep up with, especially given our daily work on top of that.
And how many craft books or Roost books do you publish in a season or in a year?
That varies too. I think there was sort of a steady period where Jenn and I and our old editor, who's part of our team, Rochelle, who didn't make the move with us, we were all acquiring and we were all editing. And so we probably had, I don't know, like
30 books a year?
Yeah, I would say
25 to 30 books
25 to 30 books
a year. It's a pretty
yeah.
small list. And, craft-wise, I'm probably working on maybe 2 books a season.
Yeah.
And that's 6 books a year. So it's a pretty select group of titles.
We've got a season coming up that has very few books on it because we moved.
Understandable.
I had a baby and Rochelle didn't move, and yeah. But we have another editor on our team now, Jerry Sonker, who just came from Timber Press to work at Roost, and so we'll probably be picking up numbers again over the coming seasons.
Okay. And I don't know if you can tell me this, and it's okay if you can't, but what's a typical first print run for a craft Roost book?
That also varies. I mean, it varies per title and subject and season even.
Yeah. And a lot of it, we have a general sense at this point of how many copies we think a book will sell. Publishing is such an interesting business in that it really is gambling, truly. And our print runs are based on both what we think we might be able to do in a year and the information we get from our accounts. So, as a book comes up on its pub date and we see what orders are coming in, we sort of choose our number based on that. It really varies. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to say a specific number. I feel like it would be unfair to say that.
Yeah, no problem. And as you were saying, it really is a gamble because you are investing upfront in something you don't know if it's going to pay off. And sort of related to that, I wondered whether Roost offers authors an advance.
We do. We work just like every other publisher.
The last 2 publishing houses I had on the podcast don't. So it's not everyone.
Oh. Maybe we should change our
No. Don't get any ideas. You keep going.
No, we work in a very traditional way, offering an advance on against royalties, and we usually pay out in thirds depending on the project.
Yeah, and often have an art budget on top of that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Depending on the project and
Right.
the scope of it.
So, right. So I think that that's just good to hear because, like I said, the last two publishing houses that I spoke to don't have advances, and they have a whole reasoning behind that, which I respect. But I personally, I received advances for all the 3 books that I've written, and I feel strongly that it's something that authors should get. So I'm happy to hear that you offer them. And I talked over the weekend to my longtime friend, Blair Stalker, who has a book coming out with Roost soon. And it's her second book. Her first was with a different publisher. And so I wanted to ask her how her experience with Roost has been. And I wasn't going to share it if she said it was awful or something, but I had a feeling it wasn't going to be awful. So here is how she described the experience thus far. She says, "My experience working with Jenn and Roost has been wonderful. I felt like my ideas and suggestions were listened to and respected throughout the process. The collaboration between author and publisher felt genuine, and I'm so proud of the book we produced together." And I know that from talking to a lot of craft book authors over the last 11 years or so, that is not always the case. And I think actually often it's not the case. So what are you doing to make somebody like Blair say something like that?
Well, Jenn's the best editor in the world.
First, it's just so nice to hear Blair say such sweet things. She's been such a dream to work with. I really love her work, and it's been just such a pleasure. But I think, we recognize that the craft books and the cookbooks, or any visually heavy book, it's such an expression of the author. And we really try to balance both creating a book that we think fits a market and that we can sell with the author's vision and personality and voice. So we spend a lot of time trying to balance those aspects of the book, because ultimately the author's name is on the cover and we want them to feel proud of the work that they're doing and good about the final product. But we still need to sell it in the end.
Yeah.
So we're taking in all of those aspects.
I think another thing that I love so much about what we've created with Roost is this feeling of family with our authors. And we really talk about them like that, like our family of authors. And we have so much respect for what each of them bring. And we are doing what we do because we want to bring their work to fruition. And so, we try to really hear them and create books that are an expression of their voice and take good care of them. And, it's the joy of, I think, the work we do is getting to have those people as part of our lives and learn from them and the skills that they have. And it's really wonderful. It keeps us going every day, it's exciting work.
Yeah. And I would say that, writing a book is a huge effort. And oftentimes if you've gotten to the point where you're ready, that means you've already got some kind of an established business going, whether, as you said earlier, you're teaching and you're known for that, or you're selling patterns, or you're doing, you're blogging or whatever. And it often takes away from that during the period when you're writing the book. And it's just a huge expenditure of time and energy and talent. And so I just would encourage authors to be sure, even if you've been plucked by a particular publisher or, they've reached out to you and said, we love your work and we want to work with you, just to make sure you're working with a company who is aligned with your values and that, you can shop around and make sure you're getting what you really want.
I totally agree with that. And I want to add too, book publishing is such a slow process. I think it can be surprising sometimes to learn that delivery of the manuscript to finished book can sometimes be upwards of 1.5 years. That's a long relationship you're entering into, and hopefully one that you feel good about from the beginning and all through the process.
Yeah, and it extends beyond that. I have a book that came out in 2009, and I just got a royalty check from it last week. So it continues, a long time after that. So Okay, and I just wanted to, my last publishing question is about digital publishing. And so it sounds like Shambhala is kind of has embraced offering ebooks for current list titles and maybe is working through some of the backlists as well. Is that right?
That's true. We're getting as much available as ebooks as possible. At this point, we have all of our books in print, I believe, are available as ebooks, and I think we're working on getting pretty much everything ever.
Although the exception may be illustrated books. We're still dabbling in that because it doesn't seem like there's the best platform for viewing heavily illustrated titles.
Yeah, there's a challenge around that, around format and just technical things. And then also in terms of the market for those, it's not been clear on whether the effort is worthwhile at this point.
And when you mean an illustrated book, can you give me an example of what that is?
Like a heavily photographed cookbook or a craft book, where the page design is very complicated. So it's kind of limiting on how we can present those as ebooks.
I see. Okay. So maybe there's room there for an innovator to create a better formatting setup for craft and cookbook and other, as you said, heavily illustrated books where the page format is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And are ebook sales good? I mean, is it worth it?
Yeah, I think ebooks, a lot of people have for a long time said that ebooks would be the end of the print book and doom and gloom and whatever, and it's really not the case. In fact, I think what we're seeing right now is ebooks supporting print books. People who got really into reading, maybe again, by having a e-reader, are starting to buy print books again more. The curve in terms of ebooks taking up more of the market has sort of stabilized, and print sales are up. And we love ebooks. I mean, it means that people get to have access to material without having shipping or printing costs for us. So, those sales are nice for us, and they do support the print sales as well. And in terms of sort of figuring out what does well as an ebook, I will say it's been pretty mysterious. We have authors who have maybe, upwards of 5 books in print, and it does not seem to be any rhyme or reason for why some of them do well as ebooks and some of them do not sell any. So we like ebooks, they're mysterious, and we will keep doing them.
And can you just say, I know I said it was my last question about publishing, but I was lying. Can you say a few words about Amazon? Just sort of, I know you said Amazon's, taking a big piece of the pie, and it's a whole different way of buying books. And so what's important to know about that new way of buying books on Amazon? Like what works with Amazon?
Well, I think Amazon works well, first and foremost, if you already know what you want. I think that as an independent publisher, we tend to not give Amazon as much love, so to speak, as we do bricks and mortar independent publishing or independent book selling. But it's really important, for anybody making books to pay attention to what's happening on Amazon. And we definitely think about it in a lot of different areas of our business, including, when we're looking at cover designs and thinking about, well, is that going to read on screen? And when we say on screen, we're talking about Amazon. And, pricing is a sensitive issue because of the way that they discount things. And it's sort of just like working with the beast. And there's not a lot that a publisher can do in the same way that you can with a bricks and mortar store in terms of promoting a book or things like that. I mean, there are things that you can pay for certainly on Amazon. And we love when one of the editors at Amazon picks one of our books for, a pick of the month or, a particular feature. That's great. But yeah, I don't know. There's not that much to say about it. It's just sort of
reality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. And so I always ask my guests to recommend something great that they are enjoying right now. And it could be a book, it could be a magazine, a website, an app, or just some material or a project that you would recommend to a creative friend. So I'd love to get a recommendation from each of you. And I don't know, Sara, if you wanted to go first.
Sure. I'm going to give a shout out to our new editor, Jerry Sonker, who has a very, very small skincare line called Horticulture. It has one product in it, so it is indeed small and handmade. Jerry has a vast amount of knowledge about plants from working at Timber Press for a long time and from her own studies and interest, being a small-scale gardener and having a huge interest in natural beauty. And she's created this incredibly beautiful product. It's a face oil, and the packaging is beautiful, and it's made with the best quality ingredients, and it's just a total treat to use. And I love that she's got this thing that she's really passionate about, that is part of her world apart from just, being an amazing editor. So shout out to Horticulture Face Oil.
Lovely. And Jenn, do you have one to recommend?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to promote one of our forthcoming authors. I was just able to take Jenn Hewitt's class online called Carve, Print, Pattern, and I'm now totally obsessed with her method of carving stamps to print yardage of fabric that you can sew anything from. So I've been having so much fun exploring that method and process right now.
And I've been following Jenn's social media updates as she's like, I just wrote so many words of my manuscript, and now I get to go out on a walk or whatever. And, it's a lot of work, and you have to kind of give people little updates here and there about how far along you are. And so do you know when Jenn's book is expected to be released?
Oh, geez.
It's not super soon, obviously, because she's still in the midst of writing it. But
yeah, she's not delivering the manuscript for another 6 months or so.
Okay. So 2018.
It's probably fall 2018.
Okay.
My guess.
Awesome. So that's great. Okay. That's super. And if anyone listening just wanted to get in touch with either of you, or, just send a message about something they've heard today, what's the best way for them to do that?
Via email, probably. I have to say, for me, if you send me an email, it may get lost in the ether somewhere. Since having my second child, my email inbox has become a very, very, very weedy place, which I'm working on.
Maybe sending it to submissions@shambhala.com with our name in the subject line, and it'll find its way to us.
Yeah, our assistant can get things to us via that.
Okay, super. All right. I just wanted to make sure people had a way to reach out if they had something to follow up with or to say to you. So, Sara and Jenn, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the While She Naps podcast. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thanks for having us, Abby. This was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. Thanks so much, Abby.
Great. And you've been listening to the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Visit my blog, whileshenaps.com, where you can sign up for my email newsletter to get the best in sewing and blogging and small business delivered right to your inbox each week. And a big thank you to our show sponsor this week, Unanimous Craft. Unanimous Craft is free to use, but with a premium membership, you get access to their comprehensive craft show calendar, where they list not only the show dates, but the dates that applications open and close for shows around the country. Visit unanimouscraft.com/naps for a special offer just for While She Naps listeners. Thank you, Unanimous Craft. And if you enjoy the show, tell a friend about it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.